welcome to another episode of Game of Life with Dan Harmon. It's just Dan here today, but I'm so thrilled to be joined by not one but two musical theatre superstars currently in Beauty and the Beast, Jackson Head and Nick Cox. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having us. Yeah. Excited to be here.
Beauty and the Beast has been in your world for the better part of 2 years now. How has the show been for you? Because I know, Jackson, you've had a kid during the show's run as well.
Yeah. It's been big in all of the best ways. The show itself is a dream. And this character is one that I never thought I'd get the chance to play, but it's one of those ones that I've always dreamt of playing. So that in and of itself has been amazing. But yeah, I've had some really cool experiences, some cool life experiences outside of the show too, including becoming a dad, which is huge, but really exciting. And my daughter is just the best, and has lit up my wife and my life. Just I don't know, so much. So it's been the best, and it's just added to this brilliant experience and roller coaster that I'm on at the moment.
Yeah. And I didn't tell you this, but similarly to Jackson, my wife and I were thinking of getting a goldfish, which is pretty,
that's massive,
which is kind of cool. Yeah, so big things happening during the show for me as well. Yeah.
This is a question I was going to save to the end of the podcast, but I thought let's just ask now. You've both been watching each other perform, for the last 2 years, thereabouts. What do you enjoy about the other's performance?
There is so much that I enjoy about Nick's performance in this show. But interestingly, I realized the other day, I don't know if I actually see much of your track because we're on stage together,
right?
Which means that we never actually get to watch each other except for when we're looking at each other. And because Gaston is just so invested in himself and no one else, I'm usually looking at here or maybe at Belle, if anyone.
Yeah.
When it comes to LeFou, I only look at you when you annoy me on stage. As your character, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
And so it's like brief, fleeting moments where I'll be looking at LeFou. And I have had this thought often. I'd love to watch the show someday and just watch Nick and follow him around the stage, because I'm sure he is doing so much. Like from time to time, I'll peripherally catch on to something that Nick's doing, and I'll later just remember it and lose my mind laughing about it because I just think it's hilarious. So maybe someday I'll be able to actually see what you do.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Similarly, because you are looking out, we don't actually have a lot of moments like this.
Right.
So I've gotten really good at noticing the side of his head and that jawline, but also I've been able to see the shoulder definition come in because he's been hitting the gym pretty hard. So I've been able to see the growth. He's putting the time in at the gym.
Look, I'm glad someone's noticing it.
But I think on a serious note, I think my favorite part of his performance is I think at the start of the tavern scene. It's one of my favorite bits, the melodrama that you bring to the character at the start. It's just so funny and brilliant and exactly what you would expect from someone who is like Gaston, that sort of ego-driven, dare I say narcissist type personality. And you just do it so funny, and you can't help but be at that point too, you're still winning over the audience because it's still it's that villain that everyone loves to hate type of deal, but it's so funny. And the dedication to the character that you bring to it is next to none. So
I love that.
That Gaston number is crazy. It is so energetic, and that moment at the sort of towards the end of the number where you're all hitting the the glasses. It was so wonderful to watch that as an audience member. Just blown away. It must be hard to sort of maintain that sort of discipline you need for the show while you're in the show.
Yeah. Look, you're not wrong. Gaston is full on. I think that's what audiences love about it. Is that you you get what you're paying for when
It's
you
high
come
impact.
and see.
Yeah, it's high intensity.
There is just so much going on. I said recently, actually, it's called Gaston, but I think it should be called LeFou, because Nick is just running around the stage, like doing all his LeFou things, but also just sounds absolutely flawless when he opens his mouth, which, you know, you expect nothing less from Nick Cox. But the fact that he's doing it whilst running half a marathon is pretty incredible. Tagging on to that, there's just so much that happens on the stage in that number. There are so many props. I think I did a prop count for myself, and I interact with about 20 just in Gaston. And I'm sure Nick is around the same, and like all the ensemble too. We all do things and move things and carry things, and there's lifts, and I cartwheel off a bar at one point. It's pretty crazy. And so how do we? What was the question again?
Maintain the discipline outside the show to sort of, you know, make sure you're fit enough to carry on with the show.
Yeah. It's a bit of a. I do think that most of my spare time is spent like making sure that I'm ready for the next show the next day. And I also think that maybe what you see on stage is about half of the physical routine that we are in. Like maybe.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Like I'm doing probably just as much off stage to make sure I'm ready for on stage as well.
Right.
So yeah, like we do have to be quite disciplined, but that's also the job that we signed up for. And I think that's what makes the show really cool, is that it is that high intensity, and there's a lot of that physicality. And so if it's part of our job to do some extra work on the side to make sure we're ready for it, then, you know, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just picking up on that, basically. Just the warm-ups before this, like the cast always gets together, because especially the ensemble, they not only have Gaston, but then a quick break and then straight in to be our guest, which is even more intense, you know?
Yes.
So we have that, we have a big warm-up at the start, like a full company warm-up. But then when we're getting into costume and everything, I then warm up before, again, like I'm just pretend to be skipping rope or something just to stay warm. The dancers are doing, I think they're doing some sort of a calisthenic type warm up, like push-ups and squats and things like that, just to make sure their bodies and ligaments are warm and ready. I try to do something similar, but the tough part is then trying to find that balance of being warm, being physically ready, having the muscles activated, but then not too tight so that your stomach is then engaging, and then it's going to mess up the singing quality, because if you can go too far in that direction. So it's finding that sweet spot. And a lot of the work for me is just like exercise outside. You know, the gym, knee over toes has saved me. I don't know if you saw him, but if you want to save your knees, that's the guy to go to. So jumping on and off the bar, that's been the saving grace, I think.
What was that moment like when you got the call to say that you were going to be in Beauty and the Beast?
I'll let you take this one.
I was with my wife, and we were just coming back from some sort of an event that we were really sleep deprived. We had our dogs with us, and we were tired, and we were just like ready to go home, and not defeated, but just, you know, like, yeah, okay, let's just recover and we'll figure things out. And we got a call from my agent, and we were waiting. And so I remember I was like, oh, it's my agent. And she pulled over, and I said, oh, this could be anything. Like I had this excitement and then this dread, because you've been in this situation before. Usually it's a no, you know, so you're like, you get that joy, and then you're like, oh, it could be anything. All right, it's fine. Life is fine without this. I'll be okay. It's fine. Had this mini pep talk in my head that lasted so long, but it was only like a second, but felt like an hour. Anyway, it picked up, and they said, congratulations, you got the part. And then I had him on speakerphone, and I looked to my wife. She screamed at the top of her lungs, and I went, what? and then the dogs are barking in the back seat, and I was like, this is so cool. Okay, bye. I hung up on him and then spoke to my wife, and I was like, wait, I don't have any information. And so then I called him back and then got the details. It was just the most joyous, funny, unexpected thing that I could have, and just immense gratitude from then on. But I joked with my wife that I got the news and hung up on my agent like instantly. I was so shocked. It's like, oh, cool. Oh no.
That's awesome. For me, I don't actually I don't know if I remember the specifics of it, because I think getting the call in and of itself was like, and I probably just didn't have much to say. But I do remember one thing. I think the person who called me, still can't remember who that was either. But I think their wording was, "Are you interested?" Or like this is what we want to offer you. Are you interested? Is that okay? And I was like, are you kidding? Like, yes.
You're asking me if I'm interested?
Like, yeah, I'm interested. And I just thought that was funny because it was just such an easy yes. Like as if you'd say no. So grateful.
How long did you have to sit on the information before it was announced publicly that you were going to be in this show?
Quite a while.
Yeah.
Felt like a while.
Must have been hard.
I think it was, And I feel like, I think LeFou was in the second announcement, if I recall, like on social media. But I think it was still like 3 or 4 months, I think, before I could. And at that point, I was working in Melb Uni anyway. I was working in an like admin type job.
Right.
And had this information that I was just sitting on, and I'm like, okay. And so it felt even longer. Like I was like, you know, to tell them. So I think it took like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, right.
It's a while.
Yeah.
Would have been longer for you, or about the same?
I don't know. I remember it being a while though.
Yeah.
And it was really exciting to finally get to share it with people when it came out. That was cool.
Once you were in it and you were in the rehearsal room, did it take you a while to sort of become comfortable enough in the show?
Oh,
I think I had. It took a bit. Like I'm like, oh God, I'm working in an office. What am I doing? Like I think I had that thought. And very lucky that we had some veterans in the show who I get along real well with, and they were like, yeah, that's normal. Like you're fine. Like we still feel it, and we've done multiple shows, so it's okay. And just wait, it's gonna get better, and then it'll get worse, and then it'll get better, and it was very true. But it took a little while to ease into it, I think, and to feel completely comfortable. Just walking into the rehearsal room with everyone and some of the props and everything, it just felt daunting. I don't know if you've agreed, but it felt like the room just kind of swallowed you up, because it was just this big project, and it was an idea for so long, and then suddenly you're here, and it's like, oh, whoa, we're doing this.
Yeah, this is real. Yeah.
Now I have to prove why I was hired. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of that, or do my best to show why, you know?
Yeah.
It's also interesting coming into a Disney production where it's a really well-oiled machine, and they've got like everything just ready and like raring to go. And I think lots of shows and companies operate differently, but definitely coming from like a uni context where we're encouraged to build shows on as little as possible. In a rehearsal room, it's often just like a keyboard or something. And so adding onto that, seeing like spoons and and forks that are like taller than you, and like all of these like props and things they've got ready, and you're like, whoa, okay, this is real. Was really cool, but also a little bit nerve-wracking.
And just building on that, it was nerve-wracking, but it was also like incredible. Like I was definitely nervous. It took a while to settle in, but that was all sprinkled on top of immense gratitude and joy to be there. Right. It's just then you have all those other little layers to balance. But showing up, it was just amazing. Like it was a really cool moment.
Also special too, like because obviously the cast was announced before then, and knowing the caliber of the talent in the room that you're stepping into and the people you're getting to work with on a daily basis, and they had no choice about it. Like you got to work with them. Was just insane. And like I remember learning dances next to everyone, and just seeing the people next to me like literally kick their face with their own leg
As a warm-up.
and as a
warm-up.
Yeah. And I'm like, I am.
Oh boy.
Do I belong here? I don't know, but I'm gonna have to try and make it look like I do.
Guess I'll be taking a Pilates class. Try to get on level with these people.
Yeah, go back into yoga. But yeah, so that was really cool, nerve-wracking, but awesome.
How did that first opening night go? Once you were through it and you did it, and okay, you were able to put your feet up and just really enjoy having done it. What was that experience like once you actually got through it?
I think I cried.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I cried at the end. There's it just the build up, and there's a lot of things that, you know, hadn't done a show, so that I was just like ignorant to, like the whole process and how you know, this is something you want to do, but the hours and what it actually entails, it's that thing of like you dream for something and then this is what you dream for and now you're going to learn about it. You know, it's so when it actually happened and the audience was so incredible. I still remember vividly, I took a mental picture at the end of Gaston when we held the pose, the response from the crowd. Like, I'll never forget that. It was so amazing. And just the month and a half of work that we all put into it, and love and dedication, and everyone was pulling their weight, and it felt like we were all in the pocket, and everyone had that right skosh of like extra nervous adrenaline that just made it magic. That when we finished that number and the roar was like deafening, and I could see silhouettes because again the lights are in our eyes, so I couldn't see anyone, but I could see some people standing, and yeah, just something I'll never forget. So at the end when we bowed and the curtains came down, I didn't mean to, I didn't plan to, but I was just like, well done, Jackson, well done, man. Like I was trying not to cry. It's incredible.
So I saw the opening here in Melbourne, and of course, Jackson, you were sadly unable to be in that opening
I'm so sorry.
show. But of course, Ruben Matters was just incredible as Gaston. When you, and I know both of you people cover, you know, Gaston and LeFou, do you sort of pass on any sort of advice to them, you know, stepping into those roles, or do you just let them be them?
I think one of the really cool things about being a cover, because I've had that experience as well on other shows as well. One of the cool things about being a cover, and I don't think, definitely on previous shows, I struggled with this because I so wanted to fill the shoes as accurately as I could, and I'd always like I'd freak out about that because maybe I didn't have the same voice type, or maybe I just wasn't the same, and like I tried my best to fill those shoes. But I think now I've learned that like one of the cool things about being a cover is being able to bring whatever you bring, and whatever made you get cast in that role as a cover for that character, bringing that is just awesome and exactly what you need to do. So no, I don't. In terms of giving advice, I think it's probably not great for other actors to give other actors notes or advice anyway. But in saying that, if they ask me, like, you know, if there's something that they're struggling with that I also struggle with, or, you know, have found something works and they're interested in that, then for sure, I'd very happily have that conversation. But I think we're really just lucky in this show. We have such amazing covers that like they all just bring exactly what they need to the character to make the character shine, but also it's still it's them and it's unique to them too, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, no, very much so. And if there's any sections that are like maybe finicky in terms of you have to look or do something on the 3 count or something, we'll like kind of run it before, like with our resident director or choreographer. But then afterwards, I'll just check in and be like, hey, how was that? Do you need to run in again, or how do you feel? But never like advice. Like,
right.
That would never ever. Because that's
I think,
no, I wouldn't be comfortable doing that, because if I was stepping in on a track that I didn't know, or not that I didn't know, but I hadn't done as much, I would just want support. So I feel like that's what all the that I can give them is just support. Let them know I'm there for you, and whatever happens, I can trust that I've done it enough that I can react accordingly and be there and just be aware, like heightened awareness, I think.
I think that kind of checking into isn't out of the ordinary for Nick and me either, because after pretty much every Gaston, we're like walking back like, how's that for you? Is it okay? Like, we're constantly checking in with each other just to make sure, because like there's some safety elements, like it's so safe because it's well rehearsed and all of that, and everything's perfectly fine. But like, it's just always good to check in just to make sure that we're both feeling safe about everything. And
Dabo loves that. Dabo plays Maurice the other day. He was like, well, 450 shows in, you're still asking how it went. It's like,
same conversation.
Always, something I really like doing when I have musical theatre performers on is I really like giving space for you to take this opportunity to rave about the behind-the-scenes people that we don't get to see. So please take this moment to rave about the behind-the-scenes people.
Where to begin?
Yeah, I love everyone on this show, and not just cast, backstage crew, like everyone involved. In fact, like we interact with quite a few of them, especially like our wiggies and our dressers. Aside from being just exceptionally talented, they're also just like some of the world's nicest humans. And I think we're really lucky to have had some really well experienced dressers and wiggies on this show, and so they not just know what we need in terms of wigs and costumes, and nothing's ever a problem, which is awesome. But also they kind of know actors well enough now, because they've worked with enough to be like, oh, this is what they need today, or they need space, or they need a joke, or they need something to make them feel a bit better. And so they're just the best. And I think definitely any credit that we might get on stage, definitely I accredit to them as well.
Yeah, and I think it's people who might not maybe love theater just as like a hobby or a passion wouldn't necessarily like inherently know that the people who, again, props, costumes, set, wigs, they're there before the actors arrive and they're there after we leave. So we get the credit and the applause, but they're there hours before and after us. Like the hours they rack up are countless compared to what we do. And, we are like on stage, but just and they apply an equal, maybe greater level of discipline and love for their craft as well. And so I think it's so important. I love that you asked that question, because they really do the unsung heroes, I think, of theater, musical theater, and just the hours they rack up. Like every now and then I'll be like, hey, how was your weekend? And they were like, oh yeah, it was good. I was in yesterday. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Of course you were, like, because you have 197 wigs to style for the start of the week,
Right.
So I couldn't speak highly enough of the whole backstage team and crew. They're all absolutely amazing. And then you get to have little moments with them too, like before you run on, like before I run on for one of my scenes. I don't know, actually, this is new. I didn't tell you this. After on stage left, after I exit for the opening number, after you plans to moon, I think, and then I run off. They've taken to a theme now of like posing with a movie, and I pass my prop off, so they'll all like hold, like it was coconuts from Monty Python one time, and it's so you get little moments like that, because you bond with it. It's awesome. It's really fun and stuff that people don't get to see, but that joy, that, I don't know, it adds to our day, I think, massively. And anyway, couldn't speak highly enough of them. They're incredible.
Life on the road. I mean, this show's been in Sydney and Brisbane. Now it's here in Melbourne. I'm not missing anywhere, I don't think. Yeah. What's life on the road been like for you with this show? Is it getting any easier?
Well, it's definitely easier now because, Melbourne's home for me. So I'm back home with my wife and my 2 dogs, which is, it's the best. I count myself incredibly lucky and grateful, because I'm doing what I love, and I love my home, and it doesn't feel like work, right? I'm just dressing up and telling a silly story and being a silly character. So I'm very, very grateful now, especially. And then also getting to be in this show has been my ticket to see Australia. Like I moved out here in 2019, just before kind of the COVID lockdowns and stuff. So I actually didn't get to see Sydney or Brisbane until this show. So it's been amazing to get to do that kind of on the back of Beauty and the Beast. It definitely, I mean, it has its challenges, I think, when you're away from, you know, maybe your network or your wife or partner or whoever. But you do kind of adjust because you kind of have to, and then you get to be playing visits and things like that. But it's got its adjustment factor. But still, the gratitude I have for just being able to, you know, the fact that this is a problem that I have is I'm very grateful. You know what I mean? There are worse things.
As far as problems go,
as far as problems go, it's doing pretty well. Yeah,
well, I'll get to travel around with the show.
They're putting me up in Brisbane. You know, it's like my problems never be worse. So I don't know.
But what are the best sort of reactions that you've gotten at Stage Door over the last, you know, couple of years? Because obviously it's such an iconic show, and I, you know, watched the movie over and over again growing up. So getting to play these iconic characters, of course, people will be, you know, have all these expectations going in, right? So what have the, you know, reactions been after the show?
Always just really great, and we're so blessed. I think I saw Ainsley say this, Ainsley Mallam, at one point in an interview, that people at Stage Door in Australia are just really, really kind and interested and invested in shows, and it's no different with Beauty and the Beast. They've been really, really great. I think for me, Sydney and Melbourne have been amazing, but Brisbane's my hometown, and so most shows I'd go out and there'd be someone from my childhood or from uni or from high school or from any part of my upbringing who have come along to see me, or and many of which have had or played a part in shaping who I am today. So that was really special, getting to see them and thank them for everything, but also for coming in seeing the show. So that was special for me.
What did you both want to be growing up?
Oh,
was it always performing?
I wanted to be a symphonic saxophone player. I wanted to play saxophone in a symphony.
That's awesome.
Because I never saw one. And in the symphony, my grandpa took me to see John Williams when I was like 6 years old. And they played all his works, and it was incredible. Wow. And but I noticed there wasn't a saxophone player. So when I was in the 5th grade, I wanted to play. I started playing saxophone and started taking it very seriously. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And then look at me now.
Yeah,
saxophone player. No. What ended up happening was there wasn't enough interest. Prepared a little something. No, that was it. Yeah. And that obviously changed a series of events, but turns out there wasn't enough interest in a summer camp, a band camp over the summer in the town I grew up in. So my mom threw me in a camp called Arts for Youth, and that was because she was like, "You're not sitting around all summer." Doing nothing, and that was like a crash course in improv and making little movies and just all things art, and caught the bug for that, and then that slowly segued into musical theater as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Saxophone. Sorry, this is a sidebar.
Yeah.
I just learned the other day, because speaking about crew and backstage people as well, Joseph, one of our sound guys who mics us up from time to time, I learnt the other day that he studied improvisational bassoon, improv bassoon at uni.
My God.
He started off doing something else, but then he was like, I'm more interested in improv. And I had never heard of it before.
What a skill.
And all of a sudden I'm so intrigued. And I feel like there's a whole
world
side
there.
of
Yeah.
instrumental
Something
music.
bassoon, man. Yeah. Wow.
So someday he'll bring in his bassoon and serenade us, I'm sure. What did I want to be? I think my earliest memory of of writing something down was in preschool, and we had to draw a picture with it too, and it was a very bad drawing of a fireman. So probably it could not be two different career paths if you tried to find them, except for the fact that maybe in this character I wear red, and firemen wear red hats sometimes.
And you bring the fire to the stage every night, right?
That's the
how
link.
it connects.
That's the link. But I think during high school,
Sorry.
I think during high school, I've always had an interest in teaching. At one point I wanted to be a PE teacher, and then a music drama teacher. I've actually got half a degree in teaching, a master's in teaching. Haven't finished it though, because I'm busy at the moment. But I'll get back around to that. So probably teaching was on the cards for a while, but performance was always the passion, and I think that's what I've wanted to do for the longest time.
It's funny, the performers I've had on the show, a lot of them say they teach as well when they're not working on a show. It's surprising to me how many performers also are teachers, but I suppose, I guess there's a performative element to teaching, I guess. Like if you're engaging enough, people can take on board what you're saying to them.
Yeah, that's fair. I think after my 15-minute tap solo, in any class that I've taught, the students were more invested. No, they weren't. They hated it and like, Mr. Head, go away. No, but yeah, I have taught in the past, and I definitely think that performance training and just performance experience contributes to your ability to teach well, because not just like the speaking in front of people aspect, but also like learning what keeps people engaged, and students as well, because so much is grabbing your attention as a student, I think, because you're just wanting to learn everything, and it's not always possible to learn everything at once. Right. So learning how to keep them engaged with just the one thing and be like, okay, how can we progress here? Yeah, I imagine performance really helps with that.
Did either of you have a pathway forward on how you were going to accomplish what you wanted to do?
I don't think I did. It wasn't clear to me at the time. I remember it was just one thing to the next. Like I started taking singing lessons. I did my first musical in ninth grade, freshman in high school, and kind of at that point was the first time I tried singing, and absolutely loved it. And then just was like, yeah, Mom, I want to learn how to sing so that I can do this forever because I just love it. And that kind of still holds it still holds true today. I still take voice lessons just because I love to do it, just for the joy of it. And she sent me to a voice lesson school that she grew up around, but none of us had done, not a performance-based family, very artistic and musically inclined family, but no one ever pursued anything kind of like this. So we didn't really know. And so when she sent me to my voice teacher, we just started training and having fun. And then eventually they were like, "What do you want to do this for a living?" And I remember being like, "Oh, that's an option. Right. Okay, this cool. Yeah, we'll go for that. Sounds good." Yeah. They were like, "All right, you need to start auditioning for schools." And I was like, "What?" All right. So I really didn't know. But it just one thing kind of led to the next, until the real journey happened for me after I went to 1 year for uni. I auditioned for 3 schools, got into 2 of them, and was like, I knew with my parents, we had discussed that, in the States, a 1 year of school is like $50,000, and we just didn't have a lot of money, and I wasn't going to graduate with $100,000 to $200,000 in student loan debts,
right?
Because they don't have HECS. It's a very different system, not for the better, over there. And I was like, I'm not going to graduate with a theater degree and that much debt, and so I dropped out after a year, and then. Similarly though, so again, the path was still foggy, and I'm like, oh God, people graduate, they get agents. I didn't do that. So just one thing I just kind of trusted and just kept, so I guess I'll take voice lessons and acting and keep chasing up opportunities. I still don't think it's clear. I really don't. It's just, you just have, I had blind faith. I was like, I'll end up where I'm supposed to be. I don't know how I'm going to, but I'll make it happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know how because I'm not that confident in any other parts of my life. But there, I was just like, I'll make it work. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I'll just trust and keep pursuing opportunities and never stop training, and whatever's meant to be will be.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great mindset to have. I wish I had that.
It doesn't apply to any other part of my life. I don't know why that is there, truly. Otherwise, I'm a nervous wreck. But for that reason, I don't know why. So I'm glad that happened.
Jackson, how about you? Yeah.
I think for me, I like definitely in high school, it was always kind of on the cards for me to study. I knew that was something that I wanted to do, or felt like was just important to me. I don't know why, but it just was. And I knew and still know at the time, because there are so many performers out there, definitely, but also like people in any kind of workplace who, like, you don't need accreditation for everything. There's so many routes to get to where you want to go, except for maybe being a doctor. I imagine that you might need.
Yeah, maybe a lawyer. Might need to hit the books.
With the exception of a few career paths. But I knew that for performing, it wasn't necessary, but it was something that I was interested in. And maybe like because I was also interested in teaching, I thought that might be helpful. And so it was just important to me to get a degree. But also, like adding on to what Nick said, Hex has been really helpful for that, and was going into it because there's less stress around having to pay it off. I was always interested in studying, and then once I studied, I was like, cool, I guess performing is next. And so I think it's been just like one step at a time in terms of like career outline or my journey, and it still is. Although being on this contract, I think the next step is always the next show.
Right. Even when you have months to go.
It still does become that mindset, doesn't it? Yeah.
Gaston, final phrase of Gaston. Okay. That's me the night before thinking about it.
Do you remember the first instances in which people started complimenting you for your performing abilities?
Ooh. I remember in high school, it was very kind of this teacher, because I'd had a few singing experiences, and I was a nervous wreck, where it was just terrible, singing wise. But we had like a soiree event, and I sang "Come Fly With Me" in the style of Frank Sinatra, and the teacher at the time was like, and next up is our resident jazz cat. And I was like, I guess this is my persona now. I'm a jazz cat. Everyone.
I don't hate this.
And that gave me a bit more confidence to get through. I think about that all the time. I don't know. I think you always kind of hang on to the nice things that are said by the people you love and trust the most.
Right.
So anytime my parents came and saw a show that I did, and my mum would say something nice, and my dad would be welling up a little bit, and you'd know that, oh, okay, maybe they believe in me a little bit, you know. Like those moments were nice. Also, my wife is just the biggest supporter of me, and apart from just being awesome and perfect for me in all of the ways, she believes in me and has since she's met me, and that it just means the world to me. So I think when you ask that question, immediately my thought is anything that my wife has said in support of me.
Oh, that's nice.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, guys.
I also love my wife. Yes.
And your goldfish?
And my goldfish. I actually remember the first moment. I got it. I think it was one of those life-changing moments. This is not a woe is me moment, but growing up, or up until high school freshman year when I did that first musical, I was the really quiet band kid. I didn't have a lot of friends and was kind of very shy and no confidence. And remember, I grew out my hair. I have a picture. I'll show you. I grew out my hair to cover my face because I just wanted to hide behind it. Like that was where. So I was a weird kid, but with a big heart. No, but I remember they cast me in All Shook Up as Dennis, and I didn't tell anybody because, you know, at that point it was like, oh God, you know, I'm going to the musical, I'm gonna get bullied even more type of thing, and so I was really, really nervous. And I remember we weren't selling tickets, and I literally, again, this is not a woe is me. This is a happy ending story, but I remember being like, well, maybe this was my mindset. Maybe people will come have a laugh if they know I'm in it. So maybe I know. I'm like snap out of it. But I literally said that. So I told people, and I don't know if that had a correlation with ticket sales or not, but I know that we had people came and saw the show. And I remember I did the character, I played it, and I had not shown any acting, singing. People didn't know I did this. And I remember the response was very overwhelmingly positive. In fact, the next day at school, this is like out of a Glee episode, I was on the wrestling team for a short amount of time, and the kid who was giving me a hard time came up to me in the hallway, and he saw the show. And I was like, oh God, he's going to double leg me right now. This is what's going to happen. And he picked me up and was like, yeah, Coxie. And people started like, yeah, like cheering. And I was like, what is going on? Like, it was, I guess people like this. Cool.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that was like a serious moment where like, I was like, oh, maybe I found something. Because up until then, I really didn't think I was good at anything or had anything to offer. I wasn't academically inclined. You know, I didn't. And I was like, oh, maybe this is something I love to do it. And people seem to respond. But it was a real, like a changing moment for me at that point. Yeah. So I think that would have been the first time I noticed any sort of compliments like towards what we do.
That's so good. Was there a moment for either of you where you felt like, oh, I found my tribe here. Like I found my group of people that I feel the most comfortable with?
Yeah. I think for me, up in Queensland, there's a Scripture Union camp called SMAD, which stands for Song, Music, Acting, Dance, Drama.
SMAD.
But if you ask any attendees, they'll say there's a debate as to whether dance is the first D in SMAD or drama is, because the drama kids, I think, are of the opinion that drama is better than dance.
Classic drama kids.
Classic drama kids. I was a drama kid. And I think going on those camps, because I was probably much like you, Nick, quite shy. I didn't have hair down to here, though. I feel like
missing out.
If I had my time again,
if I could redo one thing, that I had a ponytail.
But those camps and the mates I made on those camps, I think really instilled a lot of confidence in me, and freed me up to like make mistakes and make a fool of myself and be silly and find freedom in that and comfortability in that as well. And I think because it was an arts camp, I was like, oh, maybe this is like, you know, these are my people.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think those camps had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, same, literally the same thing. Arts for Teens, like the camp my mom threw me in. Arts for Youth was the thing before, and then the next year I wanted to go back because I had a great time.
Yeah.
But we were in that new age bracket, so they threw me in Arts for Teens, and that was where I felt like I could really let my freak personality out. Like I could just be my weird, quirky self, and it was so accepted. And that was with a bunch of other weird, quirky kids that just liked to just do theater and have fun in it. But beyond that stuff, it just brought out our personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time I felt confident, like being like the unfiltered
Mm-hmm.
version of me.
Mm.
And it was the most freeing, liberating thing. And I kind of took from that, okay, I'll try to find more areas in which I can, be that way. I won't be able to everywhere, but I can just, and it's not even just being, it's just existing.
Yeah.
Just as you want, like cracking jokes and having fun and being quirky and free, I suppose.
Yeah.
Not to get too weird, but yeah.
Yeah.
We sorry, I just remembered. Like that made me think about meal times on these camps. I'm not sure if it was similar for you, but meal times were just kind of chaos in that leaders would like jump onto the tables and like start doing like these random made up songs that were just hilarious because they were very particular to SMAD, like they'd made them up. And but yeah, it just like just allowing people to like be truly themselves in our silly, quirky ways, because we all are. It's what makes life fun. But yeah, like those memories for me are really, really cool. And yeah.
It's a fairly sort of new question I've started asking recently on the podcast, because prior to doing this, I, did stand-up comedy and some writing. But it's like, it's relatively isolating work. And it wasn't until this podcast came along where I actually started having chats with people from the musical theatre industry, comedy, writing, just everything I love. And I sort of had that moment of like realizing, oh, I think I've found my tribe of people here in a weird way just by having people on to sort of chat about everything I like. Awesome. And of course, I've picked up, some listeners along the way who also enjoy the same things I like. So I feel like it sort of took me the longest time to actually find my tribe of people. So thank you for sharing that.
That's a cool. Like mashup comedy, like stand-up comedy, and musical theatre.
Yeah.
Come to think of it, I watch
a
lot of stand-up comedy. Maybe this is the world. That's awesome.
So for the longest time, I would always fear talking to people as well, because I've always had this sort of level of anxiety talking to people because I did speech therapy as a kid, and talking to people in this setting, I thought, I can never do that. And then I finally did it, and I realized, the thing that I feared the most is now the thing that I truly love to do. I can't imagine not doing it now.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And can I say, amazing job. Never would have guessed that like ever.
Thank you so much. And it sort of leads me into this question. Like, is there something that maybe either of you feared doing in your careers, performing, and you finally did that thing that you feared, and then you realized, actually, you know what? I really love doing this thing that I was avoiding for the longest time.
Yeah. I remember, again, another distinct memory from the first musical part of coming out of I don't think there's anything from like when I started doing this in a career, so to speak, but I remember I was mortified of the idea of being silly and potentially embarrassing myself. Like that was the worst thing I could ever. Oh God, it was anxiety inducing. And there was a part in the show where I had to scream like a really loud, high, non-masculine scream after the guy playing Elvis like swiveled his hips, and like if you know the musical like All Shook Up, he just sings "Come on everybody" and swings his hips, and we go and then it starts the number. And I was mortified to do that. I was so embarrassed to even do that. And then finally we got up to like the day before we opened, and they were like, "Nick, you need to do the thing." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so I was like, okay, I was beating myself up, going back and forth. And then I did the scream, and everyone laughed. And I went, oh, okay. And then I got like more confident. I was like, oh, all right. And I was like, that was just something unique that most people wouldn't do. But I did it, and people responded well to it. And again, it's kind of similar to what you said, like on the other side of, I equated your story to like on the other side of nothing important is worth doing if there's not a hefty amount of fear in it. Do you know what? Like,
yes.
Like on the other side of fear is potentially the life you want to have. Yeah. And I just feel like embracing the fear and doing it anyway, and feel the fear and do it anyway. I say that before I go on stage, before opening night, before auditions. Feel the fear, do it anyway, and your life can potentially change. I think that was the moment for me. I was like, oh, I can let out that weird, quirky side of myself. I don't need to be embarrassed. People will either like it or they won't, but I'm still going to be here and I'm going to be fine. Yeah. And that was the moment for me, I think, where I kind of climbed over a fearful moment. As non-threatening as it is to me at that point at 14, it feels like the end of the world.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jackson, how about you?
I was trying to think of a moment. I think if I'm being real, I think I'm still there. We probably all are with like a lot of things, but first thing that comes to mind is like, I don't know. Like there's a, I think we're our own worst critics when it comes to things like singing and acting and dance. All of the things that we do for a living.
Walking and breathing.
And I'm really good at overthinking things. And so I think every time I jump into a show or role, and I'm definitely getting better at it now, like all of the vocal stuff, I'm like, oh, okay. Until it gets to like rehearsal room and I'm like sweating and like shaking, and then you get through it and it's like, oh, okay, I can do it. Like, you know, but in the lead up to it, it's like you're almost sucking yourself out of it.
Yeah, the fear of doing it is always worse than actually doing it.
Yeah,
it seems to be.
Yeah, but sometimes it just takes doing it to kind of get over that. And like that doesn't mean that'll be perfect every time in the future, but like it means that you've got that as a foundation, and if you ever doubt yourself in the future, you can be like, no, I did it before. You know, we can get back there.
You sort of change without realizing that you've changed. So I started this podcast with a co-host, Harmon, who's taken some time off this year because he's traveling. And I think I initially need that push from him to do the podcast at all. And because I remember sort of early on, I would pace back and forth before having a guest on because I was so nervous about the thought of sitting with someone. But what got me through initially was having someone next to you as a safety net. But now I'm here, you know, I don't pace back and forth before having guests on, and I'm completely fine doing this on my own too. I don't need that push anymore. So you sort of realize these things, you know, once you get through that other side of the, you know, the thing that you feared, like, oh, it's completely fine. Like, what was I worried about to begin with? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you know, Beauty and the Beast will come to an end eventually. How do you think you feel when it comes to an end? Are you good at saying goodbye to shows and to people, and, you know, then back out into the void of like unemployment and having to find the next thing?
Yeah, I in denial as long as possible about it. I've never been in a show this long, so I think it'll be sad. It'll be really sad. I love my plot. I love the people I get to interact with and friends I've made. So I think there'll be probably a mourning period in a sense. But I'll be really grateful for the time that I had and the fact that I do feel that way. Yeah, there'll probably be tears. I'll be honest. I'll probably cry, but it'll be good.
Yeah,
it's healing. Yeah,
I think. Yeah, I was literally going to say the same thing. Like being on a show for this long, I think it's a different beast.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm here all night. Just compared to other shows or productions, because you are with this group of people for such a long time, and you end up knowing them and them knowing you as well as your family do, like in ways, because you spend all of your time together. So I think it'd be really sad to leave the people. That'll be sad for me, but also I am a huge fan of routine, and I think it takes a while with shows, I think, to find your routine that works for you. Like any show, you just make it happen. You find your ways, but like on a run this long, you find like the right routine that really works for you. Which is funny, me saying that as a new dad, because I have no routine at the moment. But I think by the end of this contract, I'll be like, okay, I've got to work out a new routine for whatever's next. And so that'll be interesting too. So I think there'll be a lot of feelings for different reasons. But yeah.
I'm very aware that both of you have a show tonight, so I'll start to wrap up with a couple more questions. I mean, Gaston and LeFou, they're very, comedic characters.
Really?
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, yes.
Okay, interesting.
Having, I guess sort of delved into the sort of more comedic elements of this show, like, does that sort of inspire something in you to, maybe I want to do more comedic roles after this?
Yeah, I bit of both, I think. Yeah, definitely. For me, I think I want to. The goal becomes cool. Like I'm in this. I also want to stretch because I love acting and playing different characters.
Yeah.
So it's like I would love to play the complete opposite of this character at some point. Maybe not do the comedic thing, but at the same time, the fact that this is kind of an avenue that I've gratefully stumbled in, like I love it. It's amazing. There's just that other part of you that also wants to push your own boundaries a bit more and maybe surprise people and go the other way. So I would love to play another comedic character after this. That would be an absolute dream. But if it went the other way too, I would really embrace the challenge in trying to show, prove to myself that he can do more than just one thing, But the other thing too is there are different types of comedic characters that have other challenges and others. You never play them as comedic; they still have their truth. Do you know what I mean? Even the comedic characters, if you try to play them funny, that's when it can get real eggy. They all have a want, a need, a desire, and a backstory that usually it's only funny just because of how it's written. It's actually, it's a serious, for them, it's still a drama. Those characters, those comedic characters are still a drama. So I think remembering that and applying that from like in other comedic roles, including this one, it's just kind of a good reminder. Yeah. Went on a tangent. My apologies.
No, that's okay. Yeah.
I'm exact same. Like I love comedy. I think there's a point in uni because I wanted to be taken seriously as an actor, so I wouldn't do any comedic stuff because that's what I did in the lead up to uni. But once I got to uni, I was like, no, I want to sink my teeth into like real work, and do some more like dive into realism a bit more. And so for the first half of the first year, all I did was like realism, and then one day I just did a comedic piece. I think because I had no time and it was something I already knew, and then everyone was like, "Oh, Jackson, you can do comedy," and I was like,
"You're funny, dude."
Oh, thanks. So I think from that point on, like comedy is just something that I kind of like leaned toward, and so I think for me at the moment, I'm loving this track and really really enjoying it because it's using all of the things that I've kind of trained, but there's also like a large part of my training that like is quite different to Gaston too, and I'd love to use those skills, and we're always learning too, and like constantly, which is just one of the beautiful things about life. And so I'd love to potentially jump onto something maybe after this that allows me to learn other skills and other skill sets and develop those things so that I can become more versatile as a performer and as a person as well.
One last question. It's the question I always end on. What are the words of wisdom you live by?
Oof.
Good.
I got two.
Yes.
I have two. One was Bryan Cranston's book.
Right.
There was a chapter in there where he talks about advice he gives everyone is to get your home in order, because he's talking about it from the point of an actor and an artist, but any career you go into is going to be, it's challenges, and so you want a nice, safe place to kind of come back and just be able to relax and not carry any burden or stress, or have any volatility. So get your home in order. And when I read that was before I met my wife. I was like, yeah, no, I need to do that. That just makes sense. I need peace where I can find it, because it can be hard to come by. Yeah, depending on people's situations. Yeah. The other though was a speech I stumbled across. Sorry, I'm trying to ramble too long, but
No, that's okay.
I had the precursor to this was I had just done a show in New York at Radio City Music Hall, and we got to opening, and we were a few days from actually opening. We had done some close performances, and Harvey Weinstein showed up. This is before his scandal, and he canceled the show. So I was 19 and suddenly unemployed. And then I had this audition experience with the first tour of Newsies where I had maybe like 8 or 9 auditions over the course of several months. And I was so close for all these different characters, but I just wasn't old enough, or I didn't look the part, or the top A wasn't quite there for 8 shows a week. It was all these things. And ultimately I was unsuccessful. And I remember going home, and I went to a diner with my mom. I think it was my mom, and I went over to the I went to the bathroom, and I saw this writing above the mirror, and it was called the Man in the Arena speech by Theodore Roosevelt. Have you heard that?
No, I have not.
It's very short. I actually have it on my phone.
Yeah.
It's given me a lot of I don't know. It just put everything in perspective for me. It's very short. It's very powerful. It was written in 1910. And I'll just read it. And if anyone takes anything from this, it felt very empowering. And it's just a lovely reminder when you have all those negative voices, or negative, whether it's yours or from other people. So it's, again, the Man in the Arena. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat.
Jackson, how are you going to follow that?
I should have gone first. No, that's really good. That's really, really good. What's a wisdom? I often think about 2 things. Sorry, I've got 2 as well. That my dad would say. Growing up, he's got many pearls of wisdom. But one thing he used to love saying was dig out or cop out. That was one. Essentially meaning, like, if you're in a sticky situation, for example, if you're doing a show and you're running on minimal sleep, or you're feeling a bit run down, or you have the option to dig out and, like, make it happen and continue to offer your best and get through, or you can just give up. And we don't really have the option on stage, and so you are literally faced with dig out, and that's about it. But like just challenging yourself with that on a daily basis, I think is good practice. But he also used to love saying something along the lines of a job half done is a job done twice. And I'm still working on this one, because I'll often just like leave dishes on the sink like a terrible husband, or just do half a job because I just can't be bothered. I'm tired or whatever. But it means you still got to do it later. And I think in maybe a theatre context, I think that also applies to just the work you do in the background, and like preparing. I've got 3. Wow, another one. A lecturer at uni used to say little and often. I think that kind of goes hand in hand with this. So just doing, just chipping away at things and making sure you're putting in the work so that once you actually get there, you don't have to do that whole job again, like you've already done it. Those are the ones that come to mind.
That's great. Jackson Head, Nick Cox, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. just so envy you being in that show. It's wonderful. Thank you.
No, thank you so
Thanks,
much.
mate.
This
Thank
is
you.
awesome. Thanks for having us.
wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.